Welcome back. It's election season, so you expect quite a number of things will be playing themselves out. Ekiti, for instance, you know the political parties are rallying themselves, as they always do, to see how they could clinch the top seat in this state. So we're focusing on Ekiti elections now, and there are lots of things going on behind the scenes, part of which we'll be hosting Most Reverend Matthew Hassan Kukah, who is the convener, National Peace Committee. He joins us from Ekiti virtually. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Okay, I didn't hear that. Could you please unmute so that we can hear it?
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, nice.
All right, I'm sorry. Yeah, good morning from Ekiti, and good to be here.
How is the weather in Ekiti? I hope everything is okay where you are.
Raining, but you know, when you come from Sokoto, you appreciate every drop of rain. So the weather is really cool, beautiful. I hope it's a foretaste of good things to come.
Well, we hope so too, but more so when it has to do with peace initiatives, peace committees, and peaceful undertakings, as your group is going on with now. So just take us through that. What is going to happen today, as a matter of fact?
Well, thank you very much. I'm here. The chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdusalam, who normally leads us, is unavoidably absent. But I'm here on behalf of the Peace Committee, and we do what we've always done, largely to support INEC and also to handhold and encourage the key actors, and then encourage our good people to ensure that only the living can benefit from the processes of democracy, and then to ensure that people play the game according to the rules. It's about the best we can do. So we're here largely to extend the good voices of Nigerians, and then to let the people of Ekiti know that Nigerians are solidly behind them, and the Peace Committee represents, the good people of Nigeria.
I know you may have responded to this question in different fashion or context, but from previous peace committee initiatives and undertakings that different politicians have subjected themselves to or signed up to, have you seen any marginal or significant difference or fundamental difference in all of those processes that they've put themselves through in terms of how it has impacted the elections and the conduct of candidates to the elections?
Well, I think that maybe let me just take you back a little bit to 2015, and let me repeat what I've said severally. The name of our committee was National Committee for the 2015 elections. So essentially, we were supposed to, when I was asked to convene what is now the Peace Committee, the idea was for us to just see how we can encourage the key actors at that time. You remember that this took place against a backdrop of a lot of anxiety and fear as to whether Nigeria was going to survive the 2015 elections. Successfully and thankfully to God, that came to be. And we had a wide consultation across media, civil society groups. We spoke to the Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Assembly. We met with the former President Jonathan. We met with President Buhari, the newly elected president. And all we were saying was, look, did you think the Peace Committee should we just shake hands and go home? And right across the length and breadth of Nigeria, I think all of us, beginning with myself, we are quite shocked by the overwhelming outpouring of good intentions. So we are then asked to continue, and this is where we've now found ourselves. So to answer your question directly, I think that there has been a measurable improvement, and this improvement is not something that the Peace Committee can claim credit for. But I think in fairness to ordinary Nigerians, we can see that increasingly Nigerians have become and are becoming very enthusiastic about the processes. We've also seen is a reduction, in the overbearing engagement of the security agencies. So this opening up of the political space is not something you can attribute to only one body. I think it's an orchestra of voices of goodwill across the country, beginning with INEC, civil society groups, the good people of Nigeria, and really the political actors. So, but our worry has always been the messaging processes, the body languages of the political actors themselves, on whose behalf we all stand in the rain, in the sun, to perform this activity. So really, it is the political actors themselves that are very, very much behind in terms of, ensuring compliance, to the things that they are signing on to.
The last election we saw, the governorship election in Anambra State, there was a lot of apprehension. And I think a lot of people even clamored for some sort of agreement, peaceful agreement, between the candidates, essentially, because of the build-up. But in the case of Ekiti State, I think a few days ago we had this clash between supporters. It was quite bloody, really. So for Ekiti now, what have you been noticing? Just how, do I say, precarious or otherwise is the situation in Ekiti State for this election?
And I don't want to hold the media responsible, but sometimes we engage in scaremongering, and the realities that the media report often over-dramatize the issues on the ground. We were told, for example, that Edo was going to come apart. We went to Edo. I had a lot of people calling me and telling me not to put my life, in danger by going to Edo. We went to Edo. The people of Edo conducted themselves in an amazingly beautiful manner. We had credible, fair, election, results without any significant incidents. The same thing happened in Ondo. The same thing happened in Anambra. So I think the media must become a bit more circumspect, because sometimes the amount of scaremongering about the prospects for violence always don't match the realities on the ground. I think that the people of Ekiti, from what I saw yesterday, and I must confess, I didn't see much, but civil society people that have been here on the ground, the staff of the Kukah Center and the Peace Committee, all have given, they've not shown any reason for people to feel anxious about the realities on the ground. And I think Ekiti, in fairness to them, they've been quite relatively peaceful, as far as the issues of violence that we have seen across the country is concerned. So we expect that people are going to conduct themselves in the way and manner that ensures that everybody votes and goes home peacefully and quietly. So I don't expect any major incident. But again, like I say, it is the political actors that should be held responsible. And again, we're trying to explore the possibility of injecting some kind of consequential, attitude, or a consequential, how will I put it? The people, the actors themselves may have to live with the consequences of violence that they trigger if it is established, that particular actors were responsible for, particular outcomes. We've been on this for a very long time, even before during the Always Committee. What do you do? How do you penalize actors, who have seemed to be involved in instigating violence during elections? But I think this is a work in progress. Like I said, I expect that this will be fair, free and fair here.
Well, this case that I mentioned is particularly predicated or premised on the clash we saw over the weekend in Itaji. And that's essentially what we report, the facts, not trying to sensationalize, just report the facts. And it's important to have those facts, put it out there so those in charge from security agencies, government, and even the umpire, as well as your committee can, of course, take that on board and perhaps use that to champion a cause that can ensure we have a peaceful election. So essentially, this is based on reported facts, not sensationalism. I just wonder, really, when do you think we'll come to the point where we don't need to, sign a peace pact and all of that? Because it's, it's implied that once you say you want to vie for an office, or even if you want to elect someone as a voter, you're essentially saying you would abide by the rules, the constitution that that govern elections in the country. It's implicit. So when do you think we'll get to that point where we really don't need to come out and sign these accords?
Well, it's almost like saying, when are we going to come to a day that we will not need the road safety? When are we going to come to a day in which people getting married will probably just shake hands and they don't have to sign a marriage register? Desirable, yeah, well, desirable as this is, we must also be aware of where we are. You know, we hope that we'll get to that point. But frankly, it's too early in the day in our democracy. And also, I think I would like the point to be made very clearly that the Peace Committee is actually a beneficiary of an aggregate of initiatives on the ground: cultural groups, community groups, civil society groups, situation. You know, I mean, a lot of groundwork has always been done over a period of time. And as you can see from the enthusiasm of our people in trying to get the PVCs, it seems that by the day our people and our democracy is, are all maturing. The challenge really is for the political actors to walk the talk, for the political actors to become more responsible and more responsive to the wishes of ordinary Nigerians. You know, ordinary citizens are well ahead of the political actors in terms of what they want, how they see things, and they understand the issues. And the fingers of manipulation by the political elite at the highest level. This is what creates the confusion. So yes, we are working in that direction. But as you can see from the amendments that are taking place in the electoral law, these are the things that will inspire greater confidence. And I think gradually, as Nigerians, as the quality of people's lives increases, people can then become a bit more relaxed. But for now, politics in Nigeria and Africa is bound to be a bit tense, precisely because of the nature of the sharing of the political benefits. So when people in power continue to practice nepotism, when people feel that they have voted and the people who are benefiting are those who have just come out of the comfort of their rooms, they're bound to feel frustrated. These are the ingredients for violence in Nigerian politics. So I can only say that we hope we are working towards that.
Father, in reference to Kade's position, indeed, those reports of violence on the convoy of a particular candidate took place. Now, in relation to that, would it make any difference if these peace accords were signed a bit earlier in the day? Because just before your trip to Ekiti, that incident had happened. And going by the conduct of political parties and their candidates during elections, it would seem as if the signing of peace accords are perfunctory. If you went by what happened in the last governorship election in Kogi State, the political parties indeed signed peace accords, but we all are witnesses today to what happened in Kogi State. So would it make any difference if these peace accords are signed a bit earlier in the day before or amid the campaigns? And then what are the terms of reference in this peace accords? You talked about consequences. Would it make any difference also if these consequences are applied almost immediately?
Thank you very much. Fantastic question. I can only answer the question by saying, look, I served as a member of the Ways Committee that we tried to review the electoral laws and so on. The problem really has been that even some of the actors and some of the participants in these processes, they see the dangers that are posed by all these crises. But right now, INEC continues to wrestle with these problems about who is responsible for what. The security agencies tell you we're here to just keep order. INEC doesn't have the capacity, and INEC is overwhelmed, with court cases and so on and so on and so forth. So, your question is spot on. But remember, as I said, we did not anticipate that we'll be here up to now. Now, the issue of whether the Peace Committee can be responsible, or either perhaps even appear as a witness, will depend on how political actors, take the results of these processes. So I think that your question is valid. It's something we should be thinking about. But this nation is not short of laws. The question is the lack of goodwill to implement the laws. But I think definitely I agree with you that yes, and we are contemplating that it is we should be able to get the people to sign the accord well before the elections, and then perhaps just close to the election. So I agree with you. We are exploring all kinds of other dynamics, to improve this process. And a question like yours is quite valid. And like I said, these are some of the issues that we hope that we can continue to look at. So we can refine this process in a way and manner that doesn't create alternative platforms, but simply harmonizes the objectives of the electoral body, which is principally settled with conducting elections.
At some point in when Professor Jega was chairman of INEC, the elections were postponed for some time. And now, during this current INEC chairman, it was also postponed for some time. And then he says, look, the country needs to have a conversation about election management. And some suggested, do we then need to unbundle INEC? What do you think should be central to that conversation if and when we have it?
The problem with the Nigerian situation is that the sinners are the ones who are trying to make the laws. These are the consequences of where we find ourselves now, because this is political science. It is political science and it is political theory. So, and I speak to the fact that as long as the universities are the way they are, as long as we do not privilege intellect and the diagnostic tools required to refine processes, as long as we are required, we are hoping that politicians will be the ones to set their own rules, as long as we expect that almost all of this is all politics, the people in the National Assembly are focusing on their political benefit. I saw the Speaker of the House lamenting about the fact that 170 members are not going to come back. In fact, very few Nigerians will worry if everybody doesn't even come back. Because the quality of leadership that we are seeing leaves so much to be desired. So, in my view, had it been we have a situation, a country that is working, a country that takes research seriously, it is the business of political scientists, the people in power, the political actors, with the required tools, for analysis, in terms of the options that are available to ensure that things go the way they go. But unfortunately, if you have a situation in which the universities are not funded, the country itself behaves as if it wants to close universities. As you can see, we are now under the government of the bandits who have not gone to school. So, this tells you the troubling environment around which democracy is being practiced in Nigeria. So unless and until this government and other governments in Nigeria take academic exercises sufficiently seriously, we cannot expect, the person who is sick to be the one to provide the medicine for his cure. So, for me, it's a valid point, but the work of INEC should be the work. It's pretty serious. It requires serious intellectual rigor. We're not seeing that, instead, as I said, the lawmakers who are supposed to be focusing on Nigeria are focusing on their political on their opportunities and their political parties. And these are supposed to be just platforms. The higher goals should be how to fix and how to build our country. But unfortunately, we have people who are just concerned with their own opportunities and privileges. This is why every time we try to make new laws, people are thinking of their privileges as opposed to what is good for the nation.
Well, there was a very interesting point made yesterday by Chamberlain, actually, and it was just in passing about, we were talking about the peace accord, and he was of the opinion that, will there be a clause maybe that talks about, the political actors, the candidates not engaging in voter inducement or vote buying and all of that, because that's also something that undermines the integrity and even the peaceful conduct of elections. So is that something you're planning to maybe impress on them? So maybe if they can append their signature to it, at least their conscience can prick them.
The Catholic Church defines conscience as a sanctuary in which you are alone with your God. The problem with Nigeria is that we are invoking God even when we really don't need to invoke God. If you go to the National Assembly, quite a good number of members of the National Assembly are pastors, and a good number of governors, key political actors that have invaded our territory as priests. But the point to make in answer to your question, which actually I didn't answer the question that your colleague asked about Kogi and the penalties. but it is again to make the point that in reality, a body such as ours is severely constrained, in terms of what it can do. But the problem with Nigerians is that we think that, if something doesn't go well, create another committee to investigate why things didn't go well. And when you receive the report and things don't go, create another committee. The point to make in answer to the question is that, yes, you're perfectly right. We need an aggregate of ideas and suggestions as to how to strengthen this whole thing. Because even we in the Peace Committee are worried about, is this just something that people do perfunctorily, or should it have a bite? Now, to answer that question, the Peace Committee cannot answer that question. It doesn't have the powers to take anybody to court. Again, this should be the conversation, a broader conversation between academicians, researchers, policymakers, and the people who are going to execute these decisions, the judiciary and so on. So it's a package of a lot of things. Unfortunately, when we finish elections, everybody goes to sleep and waits for the next elections to come. So in between, this is where we should be having this, some of these conversations. So I appreciate the questions, and the Peace Committee will take very seriously the issue that you've raised, but we'll continue to do the little we can do within the limitations of what are set up, where we are not being set up by law. Ours is purely and simply just a gathering of volunteers who are terribly busy, and they've just come together to do a good thing for their nation.
Which is highly commendable, Bishop Kukah, the fact that you have made peace a mandate, especially peace in our electoral process. But would you really say that it is fair to say that the media is the one who heightens the scare around violence? The 2015 elections, you saw the need, you as well as other well-meaning people saw the need to talk about peace and, form the committee which you formed. Was that as a result of the media?
Yeah, I know the media gets very defensive of my way, and I understand where you're coming from. But let me correct the point I made. I was not talking about reporting events as let's say, the crisis that happened here. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that in almost each and every one of these processes, we have had projections of the prospects of violence. Now, and my point is that I think all of us can have a conversation about this, because so what happens between these projections and the realities? Because like I said, Anambra, I had so many people, including people from Anambra itself, who told me not to come to Anambra. I had people who told me not to go to, and members of the Peace Committee, not to go to Edo. We had the same projection. I'm simply saying, and I don't discount the fact that we are the mirror of society and so on. I'm not talking about reporting events at the time they happen. I'm talking about the nature of the projections, because it cannot be that somehow, after all these projections about Nigeria is going to collapse, Nigeria is going to collapse, and the collapse of Nigeria is an impending reality, and then suddenly the clouds all disappear. Now, if that happens, we should ask ourselves the question. Maybe somebody paid the witch, the rain doctor, and we don't know. But I think as a post-fact analysis, from the point of view of post-fact analysis, we should be able to ask ourselves, no, were there things we didn't see correctly? What did we see differently? What did we project differently? Did we speak to people enough? So for me, it's not a blame about the media and its ability to report. It's the nature of the projection that we make. And I'm just saying that it must be very interesting that every time we make these projections, oh, happily, NEPA has struck.
All right, so I was just thinking, well, the concept of repentance, when the media puts out those messages and the people repent, God forgives them. What happened? Well, that might have been a scenario that plays out. All right.
Well, hold on, Chairman. The last time
I didn't know you were back, actually.
Yeah, thank you. I got you there. No. God doesn't just forgive automatically. We in the Catholic Church have a pretty sophisticated way of how God forgives. And if you indulge me, I tell a little anecdote, about a man who, when people think that the priest, somebody just goes to confession and confesses and the priest simply blesses him. No, a lot of interrogation goes on at the confessional. Because this guy goes to the priest and he says, Father, please, forgive me. I have sinned. And Father says, well, go ahead. And he says, I stole a robe. And the priest says, okay, what kind of rope did you steal? Is it from a rope maker? And the guy said, well, yeah, no, it's not a rope maker, because if it's from a rope maker, then your penalties will be a little bit minimal. He says, no, so where did you steal the rope? He said, well, this rope was actually, I found it near a tree. And he said, okay, so was it abandoned? He said, no, it wasn't abandoned. Long story short, the man stole a goat. But because the goat, he started by simply saying he stole a rope. Now the goat was tied to a rope. Had there been no interrogation, will not hear the truth. So God's forgiveness is not automatic. It is contingent on a lot of things. One, that you, the sinner, realizes the gravity of your sin, and you, the sinner, promises that by the grace of God, you will not sin again. You will not repeat the same sin because you realize its gravity. It is on the basis of that the priest doesn't forgive, invokes God's blessings and grace to use him as an instrument to pray for you and hope that you become a better Christian. In our own case, the people who are sinning are actually sinning even more. And that is why I often tell people, when people tell me to pray for them, I say, let me know what you want me to pray for you for. Because all of us have to agree. So it's not, the forgiveness is not as easy. But in Nigeria, I think what we need are stiffer punishments, not invocation of God. On this matter, I say to people scandalously, God doesn't have a ballot box. God doesn't vote. We are the ones who are voting. So account to us. All of us will account before God. But until we get there, we Nigerians are asking you to account to us. If you wanted to account to God, if you want another life, go and become a priest. But this is not, politicians must be told that they are responsible to the people of Nigeria. So all this talk about fear of God, I often say to me, it doesn't matter to me. Do what needs to be done. Whether you fear God or you don't fear God, you will settle with God. But for now, it is fixing the roads and giving us water and stopping the lights from going up as they just did. That's what we are voting people to do on our behalf.
Bishop, it would seem as if we all need to ask for forgiveness. Speaking of some category of people in the mix as well, I imagine that during these peace accords, the body language of those you're taking your appeal to is one of sensibility and, in fact, maybe a concession to the terms of reference of the peace accord. But really, perhaps they're not the ones the message is designed for, because they're not actually the ones that go to the streets, to perpetrate the violence. The violence is perpetrated by proxy. Doesn't that leave us in a precarious and seemingly helpless situation, Bishop?
Well, this conversation belongs to all of us, really. It belongs to all of us. And very often we are barking at the wrong tree. And I think this is where civil society, which is doing a fantastic job, also needs to do a bit more, because we need to inflate the sense of patriotism, commitment of our ordinary people. Community groups, community associations, religious groups, we need to be having this conversation as to what really constitutes good governance. Will NEPA ever repent to Nigerians for not supplying us electricity? Whose fault is it? Will anybody ever repent or apologize to us for not giving us water? These are the issues. And as I said, the challenge for us in Nigeria is that we have there are certain aspects of African tradition that are inimical to democracy. So, for example, you cannot talk to governor. You can't ask governor question. You cannot ask president question. So we sanctify the people who came kneeling down and begging for our votes. And then after the process is over, real democracy does not arise from the good intentions or the goodwill of the people who are the actors. Every criminal can make a commitment to trying to be good. The real challenge is, are we prepared from the day a man is sworn in or a woman is sworn in to confront, to engage, to bang at the door? Because there is righteous anger, righteous indignation. And very often Nigerians think that others can do those things on their behalf. It is not so. So for me, it doesn't matter what kind of signature people append to this whole thing. The real challenge is, are we prepared to confront them with the fact that this is what they signed on to?
Okay.
So these are the important issues.
All right, Bishop, we need to wrap up, but if you could just in a few seconds, is there any word about the priests who were kidnapped in Sokoto?
Thank you very much for asking that question. The word is that, I mean, you know the way this is, like you just keep negotiating with the bandits and they will decide what they want to decide. They're asking us to pay money we cannot afford to pay. So we are on a wing and a prayer, and that's where we are. But thank you very much for asking.
All right. We also do thank you very much indeed for coming on and for the job you do. Even now in Ekiti, Most Reverend Matthew Hassan Kukah, convener, National Peace Committee.
Thank you very much, somebody. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Well, back in a moment. Stay with us.